Westwood Lane stood still under a soft glow of streetlights, its serenity broken by wailing sirens. Police cars swarmed the quiet street, their flashing lights bouncing off white picket fences. Neighbors peeked through curtains, drawn by the chaos surrounding the Harpers' perfect colonial home, a place now marred by darkness. Elena Harper sat motionless on the front steps of her house, her hands trembling as she clutched a shattered wedding photo. Blood streaked her face and blouse, glistening under the flashing lights. An officer cautiously approached. "What happened?" he asked. Elena's lips trembled as she whispered, "I didn't mean for this." Inside, Victor Harper lay sprawled on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. Broken glass sparkled around his lifeless body, remnants of a toppled wine glass nearby. The once pristine living room, with its elegant furniture and Persian rug, had become a gruesome crime scene, telling a story of violence and despair. The officer crouched to Elena's level, his voice gentle. "Can you tell us what happened tonight?" Her fingers tightened around the wedding photo as she exhaled shakily. "I tried to fix it. I really tried," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "But I didn't mean for it to end like this." Across the street, silhouettes gathered in windows, their hushed voices cutting through the night. "Wasn't that the Harper's house?" a neighbor murmured. "They seemed so perfect." Another shook their head. "You never know what happens behind closed doors." Whispers swirled, each speculation adding to the tragedy unfolding in their midst. Officers moved methodically, piecing together fragments of the Harpers' shattered lives. A life of charity galas and polished appearances now lay exposed. "The perfect couple?" a neighbor whispered. "I heard there were problems." As Elena sat quietly on the steps, her gaze distant, secrets beneath the facade began to emerge. Elena Harper stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window at the same manicured lawn she watered every morning. Her days were a routine of cleaning, errands, and meals that Victor rarely acknowledged. Once, his compliments filled the silences, but now his absence lingered more heavily than his presence. She adjusted her wedding ring, a habit she couldn't shake, and whispered, "Is this what forever feels like?" Her heart ached, but the words went unheard. Victor Harper's booming laughter echoed at charity galas, his arm wrapped confidently around Elena, the perfect picture of a successful couple. Behind the scenes, his ambition ruled his life. At the office, Victor's charm disarmed colleagues, while his calculated manipulations earned him enemies. At home, he wielded cold detachment, turning their once warm exchanges into distant nods. Victor excelled at crafting a flawless image, but every smile concealed the cracks in his carefully curated life. The moments between them grew colder, quieter. Victor spent late nights at the office, his phone buzzing with messages he shielded from Elena's view. Dinner conversations dwindled into monotony. "How was work?" "Busy." Each exchange chipped away at Elena's resolve. Nights became sleepless, her thoughts swirling with questions. She gazed at their wedding photo on the mantel, the smiles now feeling like a cruel reminder of a love that had slipped through her fingers. One evening, while cleaning Victor's car, Elena found a scarf tucked beneath the passenger seat, a delicate fragrance she didn't recognize lingering on the fabric. Later that night, his phone buzzed on the counter. A quick glance revealed messages. "Dinner was perfect. Same time next week?" Her pulse quickened. Victor walked in, catching her staring. "Something wrong?" he asked, his tone disarming. She shook her head, her world now spinning with suspicion and fear. A crumpled receipt on the desk confirmed her fears. Chez Laurent. The date matched a night Victor claimed to be working late. Her stomach sank as she read the extravagant charges, imagining the intimate dinner she had long stopped sharing with him. Betrayal sharpened her focus, igniting a need for answers. Catherine Monroe strode confidently through the law office, her bold demeanor turning heads. She laughed easily, her vibrant personality contrasting sharply with Elena's reserved nature. Catherine was unapologetic about her relationship with Victor, a secret she flaunted among close colleagues, but she remained oblivious to Elena's growing awareness of the affair. Each time Victor disappeared into a call or client meeting, Catherine's presence loomed larger in Elena's mind, deepening the rift in her heart. Elena sipped tea at her friend Rachel's kitchen table, her hands trembling. "I think he's seeing someone," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Rachel reached across, gripping Elena's hand. "You don't deserve this. Leave him." Tears welled in Elena's eyes. "I can't. Not yet. I need to be sure." Rachel's frown deepened, but she nodded. "Then be careful," she warned. Elena left with a plan to uncover the truth, her heart heavy but resolute. Elena sifted through Victor's credit card statements late at night, her fingers trembling. Charges for expensive dinners at restaurants she'd never heard of, unexplained jewelry purchases, and hotel bookings screamed betrayal. Parking a few blocks away from his office, she watched as Victor left in a tailored suit, only to meet a woman she recognized from his office holiday party, Catherine Monroe. The woman leaned into Victor's car, laughing, before climbing inside. Elena's heart clenched. As she followed them, a storm of dread churned inside her. The facade of her marriage was crumbling, each piece of evidence a sharp knife. Elena sat in her car after witnessing Victor and Catherine enter a boutique hotel. She stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror, her makeup smudged from tears. "What does she have that I don't?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Memories of Victor's past compliments echoed in her mind. "You're everything I've ever wanted." But those words felt hollow now. Self-doubt gnawed at her. Had she failed him? Or had she simply been blind to the truth? Anger surged within her, but heartbreak weighed her down, leaving her feeling small and unworthy, a shadow of the confident woman she once was. The scent of lilacs wafted from the garden as Elena stood by the mantel, gazing at their wedding photo. She remembered the day vividly, Victor's nervous laugh, as he vowed to love her forever. Back then, his touch felt like a promise, his smile a sanctuary. But now, those memories only deepened her despair. Nights spent laughing over cheap takeout had turned into silent dinners. The warmth in his eyes had grown cold. She placed the photo face down, unable to bear the contrast between the life they had built and the emptiness that now filled their once loving home. "You're ridiculous, Elena," Victor snapped, his tone sharp. "What are you even talking about?" "I found the receipts, Victor. The dinners, the hotels. Her scarf in your car." Elena's voice wavered, her chest heaving with anger and despair. Victor rolled his eyes, pouring himself a drink. "You're imagining things. Paranoid, as always." Her hands balled into fists. "Don't you dare dismiss me. I saw you with Catherine." He smirked, shaking his head. "You're insecure, Elena. Always looking for something to blame." The room spun as his words sank in. She felt gaslit, questioning her own sanity. Was she losing herself? Elena couldn't sleep that night, Victor's dismissive words echoing in her mind. Her rage burned hotter with every passing hour, By morning, her despair had hardened into resolve. She would confront him, but on her terms. She planned an elaborate dinner, calling Victor and claiming she wanted to fix things. She even reached out to Catherine, ensuring she would overhear Victor's lies firsthand. "He'll never humiliate me again," Elena muttered, setting the table with their finest china. Beneath her calm exterior, her heart thundered, torn between fear and anticipation of the reckoning that was about to unfold. Catherine arrived at the Harper home, unannounced, her heels clicking loudly on the driveway. Elena opened the door, her pulse quickening. "What are you doing here?" Elena asked, her voice tight. "We need to talk," Catherine said coolly, stepping inside uninvited. "Victor told me he's leaving you. It's time you accept it." Elena's face flushed with humiliation. "You think you know him? You're just a piece of his lies." Catherine smirked. "No, Elena. You're the one he's been lying to. He doesn't love you." The words struck Elena like a blow, deepening the crack in her fragile composure. After Catherine left, Elena stood in the dimly lit dining room, trembling. The humiliation of her words clung to her like a second skin. "You don't love me," she whispered, her voice hollow, imagining Victor's betrayal replaying in her mind. She glanced at the neatly arranged table, the candles waiting to be lit. No more pleading, no more waiting for an explanation. The woman she had been was gone. This time, she would reclaim her life, not with apologies, but with action. "Let's see how perfect his lies look in the light," she muttered, a bold determination solidifying within her. The dining room was bathed in candlelight, the table set with their best china. Elena smoothed her dress, forcing a smile as Victor walked in. "What's all this?" he asked, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "I thought we could have a nice dinner, just us," Elena said, her voice soft. "A chance to reconnect." Victor's hesitation melted into a smirk. "You've finally come to your senses." Elena's hands clenched beneath the table, her true intentions hidden behind forced warmth. Elena poured wine into their glasses, the crimson liquid swirling ominously. She raised her glass, her gaze steady. "To us," she said, her tone almost convincing. Victor chuckled, lifting his glass. "To moving forward." As they drank, Elena watched him closely. The sedative dissolved seamlessly, its effects subtle but effective. Victor leaned back in his chair, his movements slowing. Elena's heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but from the weight of what was about to unfold. Victor's phone vibrated against the table. He glanced at it, smirking as he typed a reply. "Who's so important tonight?" Elena asked, her voice laced with feigned curiosity. "Work," Victor said dismissively, sliding the phone into his pocket. Unbeknownst to Elena, the messages were from Catherine. "Why haven't you replied? Are you still there?" Catherine's suspicion grew with every unanswered text. She grabbed her keys, her determination to uncover the truth driving her to action. Elena stood abruptly, reaching into a nearby drawer. She pulled out a recorder and pressed play. Victor's voice filled the room, intimate and unmistakable. "I'll leave her soon, Catherine. You're all that matters to me." Victor froze, his smug demeanor evaporating. "Explain this," Elena demanded, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. Victor leaned back, a lazy smirk on his face. "So, you've been spying on me. How resourceful." The callousness in his tone sent a chill through her. "You've always been so desperate," Victor sneered, rising from his chair. "It's pathetic, really." Elena's breath hitched. "I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me." He laughed, the sound cruel and cutting. You're nothing without me, Elena. You never were. Her humiliation burned hot, morphing into rage. Victor's words were daggers, each one piercing deeper. Tears blurred her vision, but her resolve remained unshaken as tension mounted between them. Victor stepped closer, his eyes dark. You think you can corner me? You're just as useless as you've always been. Elena backed away, her chest heaving. Stay away from me, she warned. He lunged forward, shoving her hard against the table. Dishes clattered to the floor as pain shot through her back. The moment hung heavy in the air, his aggression igniting something primal within her. She reached for the nearest object, desperate to protect herself. Her fingers closed around the decorative knife on the table. In a blur of motion, she swung it upward, her instincts overriding her fear. Victor gasped, his eyes wide with shock as blood seeped through his shirt. He stumbled back, collapsing onto the hardwood floor. Elena stood frozen, the knife slipping from her grasp. The room fell silent, except for the shallow wheeze of his breath fading into nothing. Blood pooled around him, staining the room with irreversible finality. Elena's hand shook as she reached for the phone. Her voice cracked as she spoke to the dispatcher. I need help. There's been an accident. The operator's questions blurred in her ears. She looked at Victor's lifeless body, her mind racing. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she whispered, her words barely audible. As the call ended, Elena sank to the floor, the weight of what she had done crashing down on her. Detectives combed through Victor's belongings, uncovering a trove of damning evidence. Intimate photos of him and Catherine were tucked inside a desk drawer, alongside emails detailing secret rendezvous. In his office safe, investigators found receipts for luxury jewelry, purchased just weeks before his death. This is clear-cut infidelity, one detective muttered. Each discovery chipped away at Victor's pristine reputation, painting a picture of betrayal. Elena watched silently, her expression unreadable as the truth spilled out. The toxicology report deepened the case's complexity. Traces of a sedative were found in Victor's system, raising questions about Elena's actions that night. Was it premeditated? The prosecutor asked pointedly. Elena's attorney countered. The sedative could have been an act of self-defense, an attempt to diffuse tension. Whispers rippled through the courtroom. Each side clung to its narrative, while Elena sat quietly, her hands clasped, as her motives were dissected under the harsh glare of scrutiny. The trial became a national sensation, tabloids dubbing it the perfect wife's imperfect revenge. Camera crews camped outside the courthouse, eager to capture Elena's every move. Inside, the courtroom brimmed with tension. Spectators craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the woman whose story had captivated the nation. This isn't just a murder trial, one anchor declared. It's a tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and revenge. Elena's life was now fodder for public fascination and judgment. Catherine Monroe took the stand, her demeanor icy and confident. Elena was obsessed with controlling Victor, she said, her voice steady. She couldn't handle losing him. Catherine painted Elena as unhinged, driven by jealousy and spite. Her testimony stung, each word a calculated attempt to bury the woman she had wronged. Rachel, Elena's closest confidant, sat tall in the witness chair. She endured years of emotional neglect and gaslighting, Rachel testified, her voice breaking. Elena wasn't vengeful. She was desperate. Victor broke her. Her heartfelt words offered a stark contrast to Catherine's venom, humanizing Elena as a woman pushed beyond her limits. The prosecutor paced before the jury, gesturing dramatically. Elena Harper didn't act in desperation, he asserted. She planned this. She drugged Victor, lured him into a confrontation, and killed him in cold blood. This wasn't self-defense. It was a calculated murder. The jury shifted uncomfortably. The prosecutor's words hung heavy in the air, casting Elena as a cold and meticulous killer. Every detail was twisted into a narrative of premeditation, adding weight to his damning argument. Elena's defense attorney rose, his voice measured yet impassioned. Elena Harper is not a murderer. She is a victim of betrayal, manipulation, and emotional abuse. That night, she acted out of fear, not malice. His plea for compassion resonated, casting Elena as a woman trapped in a toxic marriage, seeking a way out. The judge's voice echoed. 8 years, manslaughter, mitigating circumstances. Elena stared ahead, her life reduced to a number. Justice delivered, yet it felt hollow. In her cell, Elena whispered, "I should have left." She clutched an old photograph, the memories piercing deeper than the silence of the grey walls surrounding her. Betrayal doesn't destroy you, Elena shared in prison counseling. Silence does. Ignoring the cracks only worsens the fall. Her story became a powerful warning. Elena's journey echoed beyond prison walls. Face the truth before it breaks you, she said. A reminder that confronting pain is the first step to healing.